Born in 551 BCE in the small feudal state of Lu, located in present-day Shandong province in China, Confucius, known in Chinese as Confuzi or Kongzi, emerged as one of the most influential philosophers in history. His teachings have shaped not only Chinese society, but also the cultural and moral frameworks of East Asia for over 2 millennia. To understand Confucius and his enduring philosophy, we must explore the world he was born into, his personal journey, and the profound ideas that have transcended time and space. Confucius lived during the late spring and autumn period, a time of political turmoil, social upheaval, and moral decay in ancient China. The Zhou dynasty, which had once been a unifying force, was fragmented into warring states. The centralized authority of the Zhou kings had diminished, and local warlords competed for power. Amid this chaos, society suffered from corruption, injustice, and a decline in traditional values. The world that Confucius knew was one where survival often depended on alliances, betrayals, and war, rather than moral principles or ethical leadership. He saw the erosion of the moral fabric that had once held society together, and believed this decay stemmed from a lack of virtue among rulers and a neglect of proper rituals and ethical conduct. Inspired by the wisdom of the past, particularly the ideals of the early Zhou dynasty, Confucius sought to restore harmony and order to society. Confucius was born into a modest family. His father, a minor military officer, died when Confucius was just a child, leaving his family in poverty. Despite these hardships, Confucius was determined to acquire knowledge. He developed a love for learning, immersing himself in the ancient texts of Chinese history, poetry, and rituals. From an early age, Confucius believed in the transformative power of education. He viewed it as a tool not only for personal betterment, but also for creating a just society. This belief became a cornerstone of his philosophy. His commitment to education and self-cultivation was evident in the way he constantly sought wisdom and encouraged others to do the same. Confucius began his career as a public servant, holding minor government posts. However, his vision of ethical governance often clashed with the corrupt practices of the time. Frustrated by the lack of opportunity to implement his ideas, Confucius turned to teaching. Teaching allowed him to influence the minds of future leaders, and through his disciples, his vision of a harmonious society began to take root. His students came from various social backgrounds, reflecting his revolutionary belief that education should be accessible to all, regardless of class. This was a radical idea in a time when learning was often reserved for the elite. Confucius taught his students the principles of virtue, proper conduct, and governance, emphasizing the importance of self-cultivation and moral integrity. Confucius was not a philosopher who wrote volumes of texts. Instead, his teachings were transmitted orally and preserved by his disciples. He is credited with teaching over 3,000 students, 72 of whom became highly accomplished in their own right. These disciples compiled his sayings and ideas into the Analects, a collection of conversations and reflections that remains a central text of Confucian philosophy. The Analects provide insights into Confucius's teachings on morality, government, education, and the cultivation of virtue. His words, though concise, often carried profound meanings, leaving room for interpretation and adaptation to changing times. Confucius's philosophy centers on creating a harmonious society through ethical living, virtuous leadership, and proper relationships. At its heart lies the concept of Ren, often translated as benevolence or humaneness. Ren is the foundation of Confucian ethics and reflects the idea of treating others with compassion, kindness, and respect. For Confucius, Ren is the highest virtue, and it guides individuals to act with empathy and a sense of moral duty. He believed that a person who cultivated Ren could positively influence their family, community, and ultimately, society at large. In addition to Ren, Confucius outlined 5 key relationships that form the backbone of social harmony: ruler and subject, parent and child, husband and wife, elder and younger sibling, and friend and friend. These relationships emphasize the importance of hierarchy, reciprocity, and mutual obligations. Confucius believed that when these relationships were harmonious, society as a whole would thrive. He also stressed the role of rituals, or li, which were not just ceremonial acts, but expressions of respect, order, and tradition. Rituals govern daily interactions, from greetings to family ceremonies, reinforcing social harmony and moral discipline. By observing rituals, individuals could cultivate virtues like respect, humility, and loyalty. Confucius believed that rituals provided a framework for ethical behavior and helped individuals internalize moral values. For Confucius, the role of governance was deeply tied to morality. He envisioned an ideal society led by virtuous rulers who governed by example rather than force. The concept of the junzi, or gentleman, is central to Confucian thought. A junzi is a person of noble character who acts with integrity, self-discipline, and compassion. Confucius argued that rulers should strive to be junzi, inspiring their subjects through moral leadership. A ruler, according to Confucius, should act like the wind, influencing the grass, the people, to follow its direction naturally. This metaphor encapsulates his belief in the power of moral example over coercion. Confucius also emphasized the importance of education and self-improvement as a lifelong journey. He famously said, "Is it not a pleasure to learn and to practice what is learned at appropriate times?" This statement reflects his belief that knowledge is not just for personal gain, but should be applied to better society. He encouraged his students to engage in critical thinking, self-reflection, and the pursuit of excellence in all aspects of life. Although Confucius's ideas were not widely implemented during his lifetime, his teachings gained prominence during the Han Dynasty, which adopted Confucianism as the state ideology. Over time, Confucian principles became deeply embedded in Chinese culture, influencing governance, education, family structure, and interpersonal relationships. Confucianism spread beyond China to countries like Korea, Japan, and Vietnam, shaping the moral and cultural foundations of East Asia. Even today, Confucian values like respect for elders, filial piety, and the importance of education continue to resonate in many parts of the world. While Confucianism has been praised for its emphasis on ethics and social harmony, it has also faced criticism. Some argue that its hierarchical structure reinforces social inequality and limits individual freedoms. Others question its relevance in a rapidly changing modern world. However, many scholars and thinkers have revisited Confucianism, interpreting its principles in ways that address contemporary challenges. For example, the emphasis on ethical leadership has been applied to business and politics, while the concept of Ren inspires global movements for social justice and human rights. Environmental thinkers have also drawn upon Confucian ideals, particularly the harmony between humans and nature, as a framework for addressing ecological crises. Confucius's life and philosophy offer timeless lessons about the importance of virtue, education, and human connection. His teachings remind us that a harmonious society begins with individuals who cultivate moral integrity and respect for others. In a world still grappling with issues of inequality, corruption, and division, the wisdom of Confucius serves as a beacon of hope. His vision of a just and compassionate society continues to inspire generations, inviting us to reflect on how we can contribute to a better world. As Confucius once said, "To put the world in order, we must first cultivate our personal life, regulate our family, bring order to our nation, and only then can there be peace in the world." This profound statement captures the essence of his philosophy, a philosophy that transcends time, culture, and boundaries. Through his words and the enduring legacy of his ideas, Confucius reminds us that the pursuit of a harmonious and virtuous society is a goal worth striving for, even in the complexities of the modern era.